Making sure that our feet are hip width apart, tucking our tailbone up to the sky as we drive our heart back toward our thighs. And getting ready to move into our pigeon, we're going to lift the right leg, externally rotating as we pull the knee out to the side, pressing through the right shoulder to keep our spine straight, and swinging that leg down to the ground so that the right knee comes next to our right hand. We drop the left knee and leverage and open. And as we walk that left leg further back, dropping our forehead down, maybe fist on fist, or all the way to the ground. Keeping our hips and our shoulders square to the ground so that we're not leaning to one side or the other. Good stretch for the piriformis, the other hip opener muscle. Plantar fascia lata. And then hands back underneath our shoulders as we slide our knees back together, returning into a down dog to switch to the other side. Lifting the left leg, externally rotating, swinging the knee down behind our left hand, leveraging and turning out toward the side, and moving the right leg. Hands back under our shoulders again so we can come into yet another down dog. And into our warrior one. Rotating out to the side for our warrior two. Seeing how low we can drop without losing sight of that front big toe. Using the muscles on the side of the leg to keep the left knee and ankle in alignment. Pressing the right heel into the floor to maximize that stretch of the hip flexor down into the muscles of the thigh. Then into our triangle. Straightening out the front leg, pushing the hips back as far as we can. Hand may be resting on our shin or bringing it to the outside or the inside of our leg before we bring the right hand up to the sky. And bringing that right hand down. Both hands down to the ground to support us as we rotate the feet toward the front. Maybe walking the feet a little bit further apart so we can come into our standing straddle. Letting ourselves hinge at the hips as we drop our forehead closer to the ground. Maybe forearms down, maybe hands down. Feet planted flat on the floor. Pushing through the little toe side of the foot as well as the big toe. Making sure that our feet are lined up so that they're either directly forward or slightly inward with the toes. Settling into the rhythm of our breath. Using our core strength, bringing our shoulders up even with our hips. Walking the feet a little bit closer together if we widen them out to come into our straddle. Then using our core strength as we press through the ground and come into our warrior on the opposite side. Rotating the right foot forward, left foot halfway around. Lining up hips and shoulders with the side of our mat as we drop as low as we can into the pose. But making sure that we don't push that front knee beyond the ankle. Then into our triangle.
Energizing through that right foot, pushing the hips back as far as we can to settle that femur into the head of the hip socket. Bringing our head even with our hips. Right hand down where we'd like on the shin or the ground. Left hand up to the sky. And bringing that hand down, bending through the front knee so we can pull ourselves back up to a standing pose. We're going to rotate our feet so that the heels are inward, toes to the outside as we come into a squat. Bringing hands together or resting on our thighs, depending on our comfort zone. Maybe elbows to the inside of the thighs and pressing even further on that opening across the hips as we come into our prayer squat. Hands down to the ground, getting ready for our frog. We're going to keep our knees outside our hips. And if we can do so without straining through the knees, pointing our toes out to the side, making a 90-degree angle through our heels, and then slowly dropping forearms down to the ground. And as we choose, letting the hips drop lower and lower and lower. Our frog pose, Vikasana is its Sanskrit name. And then hands into the ground as we come up and swing our legs around to the front. And going into our cradle, the baby. Left leg can be bent or straight as we pick up the right. We can hold on underneath the shin. We can put one hand to our foot, bring the other hand around the outside, or if we're comfortable doing so, putting that right foot in the crook of our left elbow and bringing the right arm around. We want a little bit of more loosening up to that hip joint. We can rock the baby in the cradle. We're aiming for more of a stretch on the back of the hip, the outside of the thigh. We'll just give that baby a tighter hug. Shoulder blades are pulling down and back. We're stretching high to the sky. And then foot down to the floor and switching to the opposite side. Releasing our feet down to the ground, soles of the feet together. If our hips are still tight, we're going to lift and lower the knees. But once we feel as though we want to get in position, we contract the muscles on the back of the hips, the outside of the thighs to get those knees as close as we can to the ground, maybe leveraging the elbows to the inside. Remembering that if we sit on a blanket or a bolster or a pillow, we might find that our ability to get our knees lower is a little bit enhanced. Taking this to a balancing position, we can either hold on to our ankles or 2 fingers and a thumb around the big toe. As we lean back, we want to think about keeping the back straight so that we're not rounding through the shoulders. We're pulling the shoulder blades in toward each other, down toward our waistline. Still thinking about using the muscles on the outside of the thigh to keep the knees open. And then letting our lotus blossom out.